Frankie here. I'm here today with Somar, representing Renegade Rockers, Middle Beast, out here in LA, and today we're just going to talk about Airflares. Somar, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Frankie.
This one's going to be a wild one, guys. Can you start with where are you from and how did you start breaking?
I was born and raised in Jordan, in the city of Amman. My parents are from Syria, so I carry a Syrian nationality, but I grew up in Jordan. And I moved to the United States, Orange County, California in 2016. I started breaking in 2008. First off, I used to watch the old movies like You Got Served, but I never got the chance to get into it up until 2008 when I saw someone dancing. And that's when he directed me to the studio where he actually learned. And that's what got me into breaking.
Specifically for Airflares, who was doing Airflares when you first started?
Yeah, I was recruited to a crew called Middle Beast, and to be honest, no, nobody was doing Airflares. There was only one guy in my country who was doing Airflares, but he was from Oman. At the time, he used to only do 3. In 2011, I saw him do 12 rounds of Airflares, but by then I already had 3 myself. I used to watch a lot of battles online and stuff. And my favorite power movers at the time were Bruce Lee and The End. These two guys from Gambler's Crew used to blow my mind, and it was just a dream to do what they do. Airflares and power moves in general, to me, it revolves around form. And there's no right form in breaking. It's whatever form you like. Like, for example, you have OGs like B-Boy Iron Monkey. When he does his Airflares, it's more arched. His back is arched. Me, personally, I like seeing his form, but I like to do a different form, and that's the form I grew up watching from people like B-Boy Bruce Lee from Gamblers. What I really like to do is when I start my Airflares, is to bend my right knee. This bend gives me a lot of momentum and time to turn, and gives me more power when I do my Airflare. That's one thing. And then another thing is the swing. A lot of people do the swing really high. For me, the best way is to swing from the floor all the way up. The bottom of your leg should swing from the floor and then face the ceiling or the sky, and then that's when you jump. So that's one thing about the form that I wanted to share. And then for me, in breaking, any move you want to get to, especially something hard like Airflares, you need to learn how to stretch specifically for that move and how to condition. You need a lot of handstand control. You need to learn how to control and stay within your handstand at least for 30 seconds to 1 minute in your place, not moving. A lot of people can walk, but staying in your place, that shows control in your arm, in your grip. And that helps a lot for Airflares. Another thing is hand hops. When you first jump from one hand to the other, you need hand hops. That's basically what you're doing, but with a swing. So it looks like this. Notice also when I did that hop, there was a little pike into it. So that pike, that helps too. So if you have really good handstands and if you have a good pike and hand hops on both arms, then you have all the control you need for Airflares. Plus stretching and being a little bit flexible, that kind of stretch. This kind of stuff help a lot for Airflares. As far as using Airflares in your breaking, everybody has to have his own way and creative way of getting down. For me, I just like to always think of different ways on how to get into it. So I know the basic way is to put my left arm down. So I try to play around with it, maybe do a thread. Let's say I think of a spin. Maybe I could do the thread and the spin. And then maybe I could add a little bit to it too. So let's say, for example, I want to do thread, spin, and melt down, which is a basic B-boy throwdown, and jump into my Airflares. If you just put some time into finding ways into creating throwdowns to Airflares, just like how you create throwdowns to footwork, to 6-steps, to a freeze, just the same exact process. So basically, the most important thing for me when I do Airflares is the form, not speed. Speed comes with time, You could play with your speed even, but the form, if you have the form that you want, that's a big thing because people recognize quality. For me, quality over quantity and over speed. And then learning like different ways to do airflares, like maybe bend your knee, maybe bend the other one, maybe bend both of them, baby mill, airflare, maybe like the tombstone one. It's a process to get all these different forms, but it's nice to use them, to use at least one airflare like that and use it in your set. So that's like 3 different forms of airflare. For me, like I really believe in order to actually proceed and get better at a move is just to play with it and have fun. The more you work out and practice and get stronger in braking and like your body gets stronger within time, all you gotta do is just like try again. Like sometimes I stop training airflares and I just like go work out for a while and then I come back and my core is already a little stronger, but I wouldn't know until I try something new. And I'd be like, oh, I tried to do this last year, but I couldn't do it, but now I can. So it takes a lot of trial and error and keep trying over and over again because you're gonna surprise yourself with what you can do.
Somar, a lot of really good information that you put together. A little bit ago, you were mentioning getting the really good handstand, being able to hold it, the hand hops, getting the right stretches in. Could you kind of talk about, did you discover these exercises on your own over time and you kind of figured out, oh, these things are helping me with my airflare?
One time back in Jordan, I used to practice with trickers and we used to go to like a gymnastic floor. I used to see a gymnast over there who's like an Olympic athlete. I learned something from something he said and I just applied it in my own way. And he said that he needs to do these workouts to get the T-flare, which is the circle. And he needs to do this to get his core stronger because he needs these kind of muscles for this exact move. And then I thought about it. It's like, okay, what do I need to get airflares? Like I need really good handstands. I need a really good pike. I need really good hand hops in order to control my airflare the way I want to control it. So in gymnastics, every move they do, they have specific stretches and workouts for each move. So that's one thing I learned from them, and I just applied it into braking. When I got my first airflare, I got it from the standing position, but for me to be able to do multiple airflares, I had to get flare, airflare, back to flare first. And then I had to build up to going up again because it was hard for me to do flare handstand more than once in the same round. So I would do flare, airflare, and keep doing flare, and I would get stuck just doing flares. And then eventually I built up to go back up to do another airflare. So now I got 2 airflares in the same round, but they're not continuous. So I was like, okay, so what do I need to do? Maybe if I'm able to do one flare after the airflare and go back up right away, because I needed to do multiple flares to build up and go back up. So I was like, okay, let me get flare, airflare, flare, airflare continuously. So I worked on that. So I started doing just one flare, one airflare, one flare, one airflare, one flare, 2 flares, airflare, 2 flares, airflare, then 3 flares, airflare. I started focusing on the numbers, on how I play with it, up until I got to do 2 airflares. So I started doing flare, 2 airflares, flare, flare, 1 airflare. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I want to do 2 airflares twice in the same round. And that's when I did flare, 2 airflares, flare, 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 2 airflares. And then I was like, you know what? I think it's whack that I have to do multiple flares to build up and go back up to airflare again. I'm gonna do 1 flare, 2 airflares, 1 flare, 2 airflares. So this is what really helped me get continuous airflares. And when I did 2, I tried to do 3, and then I tried to do 4, and then I tried to do 5, and then I built my way up to do like 40 airflares. I don't think you need 40 airflares when you compete, but if you can do 40 airflares, in my opinion, then doing 2 or 3 in your round should be easy.
So we're not only getting advice on necessarily exercises to do, but also the approach to your practice as well. Even for something as simple as trying to master your multiple airflare, you're describing how you notice certain weaknesses and certain things you can focus on with other moves, like flares and airflares. That affects how you train multiple airflare. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. Because for me, flare is the same as air flare. It's even harder to do flare than air flare. But mentally, for a lot of people, because flare has been around for years and it's slower, so mentally people think it's easier, but it actually takes more core. And air flares is just a mental thing. If you break that kind of fear, approach it the right way, then it's way easier than flares.
The last kind of point you were talking about when you were trying the variations of the air flare, you were talking about how maybe you took a little bit of a break from the air flare, you got your core strengthened up, you were doing other exercises, and then when you came back, you kind of found that you were able to do different things with the move. It doesn't have to be so strict, training air flares. Like, you kind of have fun with it and in your journey of learning this move, your own personal journey. Is that right?
To me, having fun is the most important part, because especially with power moves like takes a lot of physicality. I personally don't like to work out. I'm not a workout type of person. I don't go to the gym and just like work out like that. For me, it's all about fun, because if you're having fun with what you do, then the effort is kind of gone. It's like when I was a kid, I used to play soccer. I never got tired because I'm having fun, you know? So same thing with power moves. Like, I always like to have fun with it. If I'm stressing out, the only times I fell and I crashed and one time I did an air flare and I landed on my eye and stuff is because I was mad. So having fun is the most important part, and enjoying the process, because if you do that, then you'll go way further.
I kind of actually want to shift topics here a little bit. You have one particular signature. From standing, you do the swipe, and then an air flare into kind of like a leg move where your leg comes back. Give us a little bit of insight how you came to this move through the mental process.
When I made up this move, I was actually taking part in a theater show, and I was learning contemporary and a lot of flow moves and stuff like that. Okay, I want to create something with my power, with my air flare, that is for me. For example, in a final battle, or like to represent myself and be like, yo, that's Somar. That's what Somar does. This is the thought process behind it. I was learning air flare to legs, which is this move. At first, I was doing air flares, and then I would just jump and land to my legs like that. So when I learned this move, I thought it was really cool. It's like, yo, like nobody can do air flares in my country like that. And I was doing air flares, and I could just jump back to my legs like, yo, what's up, you know? I was like, okay, I wanna use this move more often, and I like this transition to it, which is from swipes. And it really like fit together for me. I like the look of it. And then I thought about it. I want to flip it. What can I do? I land on my right leg like this. So I thought about this because I used to do something like that too. And I was like, what if instead of landing here, because I used to do 1.5 air flares too to my back, instead of landing here, what if I land on my other leg from the back? It's not that far, and I could possibly land into that flow move. And this is how I came up with this move. It became my signature, and it's like something I like to do it in the finals to represent who I am, because that's something I put a lot of effort and thinking into creating. Another thing I want to share is I think it's really important, if you want to use a move in breaking, whatever move that is, it's really important to learn different ways to get into it. Like, you have 4 categories in breaking: top rocks, footwork, freezes, and power moves. So let's say I want to master air flares, then I want to learn how to air flare from every power move that I could do, from headspin, from flare, from windmill, from halo, from elbow track, from 19s, from deadman 90s, and then that's just power moves. But then there's also footwork. So I want to learn how to air flare from different footwork foundation, from back rocks, tap mills, from slides like head slide. If I want to do a shoulder slide or head slide or elbow slide, and then from footwork, and then from top rocks, find different ways. This is just a few ways where you could use airflares, and that's just like the first thing I thought of doing right now. I didn't even think, I just went for it. All you gotta do is approach it from different aspects, different ways, different directions, from different moves, and that's how you actually master a move in breaking.
That's awesome, Somar. This is a lot of really good information. Is there anything else you want to touch upon or show us at this point?
Yeah, I just want to share something about control. Again, handstands is a major key point, and I would say if you learn how to airflare from a handstand position back to a handstand. So if you get this move, then you're a master of airflares already. Because this way, you could do airflare to anything. If you could just stop like that, then you could definitely do airflare to 2000s, or airflare to 90s, or two airflares, or even airflare to deadman 90, or airflare to elbow track.
That's going to wrap it up for today. Do you have any parting thoughts for our viewers? Kind of a summary or a recap of what we talked about today?
If you want to get airflares and master airflares, just find different ways to approach it. It's not a workout. It's not supposed to be stressful. It's supposed to be fun. Enjoy the process. Work on your flexibility, work on your control. Do it from everything, from top rocks, from footwork, from freezes, and that's it.
Thanks again, Somar, for joining us. We're out of here. Peace.